Hey everyone, let's just give people a few more minutes to join. Thank you all so much for being here. Today we're going to be talking to Ashley Hood, Director of People at Higlobe. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you prepared us an amazing presentation for us to talk about like how people can master those job interviews in the US directly with US recruiters. So while we wait just a few more minutes to get some more people in, let's just talk about some things. You are all welcome to send questions on the Q&A box. Actually, we'll be answering those at the end of the webinar, but you can send them at any time. You're going to be taking notes here, and then we're going to go over that once the presentation ends. And this will be recorded. So just like if you guys are here or if you already signed up, you will receive the recording for this presentation once it's done. So yeah, feel free to take notes, but we will also send that to you afterwards. And I think we already have a good crew here, so I think we can get started. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Luis, for hosting. And I'm excited. I will admit to all of you, this is my very first webinar. So I'm a little nervous, but I think it's fair because maybe most of you are going to be having your first interview with a US company. So I feel like we're kind of on the same grounds.
And I'm sure that you're gonna do great. I'm gonna be here at the background. Just let me know if you need me, and I'll come back at the end for some questions.
Perfect. Perfect. Should we get started then?
Yeah, I think we can. We already have a
Okay.
good crew. We're at 4 minutes past time, so let's get started.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hi everyone, and a huge welcome again. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join us. I know you all are maybe having lunch or in the middle of work, whatever it might be. I am generally thrilled to have you here. I am a little nervous, like I said, but excited to help all of you and share some of my knowledge. So, I'd love to do a quick introduction. As Luis mentioned, my name is Ashley Hood, and I am the director of people at Higlobe. I've been in the world of HR for tech startups for about 20 years. I know I look a lot younger. Just kidding. My absolute passion is building something new and exciting from the ground up. And I've been able to do that at the last two companies I've been at, both Higlobe and the ed tech startup study.com I was at before. So while I've touched every aspect of HR throughout my career, um, my heart and passion has definitely been building incredible teams. So for 14 years, I focused previously on domestic US talent. And then for almost the last 4 years with High Globe, I've taken that to the international market. So it's been a lot of learning for me as well. I always like to share a little bit about me on the personal side. So, a few pictures to share who I am so that you can connect with me a bit. I live in California with my husband, Chris, and our two dogs, Sydney and Hazel. I also have a stepdaughter. Her name's Keelan. She is a high school senior. So, we're in the midst of craziness. Outside of work, you can find me walking my dogs, practicing yoga or Pilates. I love to travel. I love to cook and bake. And I do a lot of camping with family and friends. So, just a little touch about me. Um, and I add this, but I also encourage you all when interviewing to add a brief touch about yourself. I think it does help make that connection. So that's enough about me. Let's talk about why you're really here. We're going to start off and talk about the US recruiter mindset. And before I dive into the do's and don'ts that will help you stand out, I think the first thing we need to do is take a moment to look at the person across the table, the US recruiter, and really the impossible job that they're facing right now. In today's competitive global market, their job is far more than just finding talent within a budget. They really are tasked with finding what I like to call unicorns, candidates who possess the right skills and the right character for the business. So, specifically, we're going to at least talk about quickly kind of four pillars that every recruiter is looking for in team members. And they're looking for you to demonstrate your experience in these areas. So, first one is definitely culture fit. Second is communication skills. Then there's collaboration. And the last one is really initiative. And this one I would say is above almost all else the most important. So these words can mean a lot of things. In my mind, let's talk about what they mean to me as a recruiter. So we'll break each one down. So the first one I'd love to talk about is culture fit. And I'm sure we all have a thought about what this might mean, but from my perspective as a U.S. recruiter, this really refers to the degree to which an individual's values, beliefs, behaviors, how they align with the core values, the working style, the atmosphere of a company or a team. It's not about being friends with everyone or having the same hobbies, and oftentimes that can be misconstrued as what cultural fit means. It really is about someone that has shared ethics, attitude towards work, decision making styles, and how one interacts with others. And if I could give a brief example of this, my favorite example is someone applying to work at a startup after having worked in a big company for 15 years. This person is definitely highly skilled, but they're probably highly specialized in what they do. Their work pace may be a bit slower and more deliberate because they're used to longer planning cycles. And they probably had access to larger budgets, maybe even unlimited budgets. Whereas when you look at startups, they're most likely looking for someone completely opposite, to be honest. Someone who's versatile, moves quickly, adapts to change, and can do a lot with a little. And what I mean by that is budget. So that's what I think of in terms of cultural fit. Communication skills. As we all know, especially in remote roles, communication is critical. And it's not just a soft skill, it really is a core tool. We don't have the luxury of walking over to someone's desk and clarifying what we mean. Everything we do must be very intentional. So, recruiters are specifically looking for candidates who demonstrate written clarity, proactive over communication, and digital etiquette. And what do I mean by digital etiquette? I mean understanding when to use the right tool. Is it a good time to send a Slack message? Do you need to send a more detailed email? Or do you need to get on a video call with someone? So knowing when to use what. Next up is collaboration. Um, Collaboration is people working together to achieve a shared goal, bringing together different perspectives, skills, and resources. It absolutely requires actively sharing knowledge. A big one for us in the US is respecting different viewpoints of people that we're working with. Providing constructive feedback, which I know may not be a cultural norm across all countries, and really being willing to compromise for the benefit of the team. So, the last one I want to talk about, and definitely the most important, always save the best for last, is initiative. Is the ability to be a self-starter and a problem solver when no one is watching. So, you really being able to have the ability to act independently and solve problems proactively, manage yourself, seek out resources to be successful. Don't wait for someone to point you in that direction. US companies really want team members that they can trust to own their work from start to finish. This is really the most important piece. So, we've talked about the four pillars that you're being assessed on, or most likely being assessed on. And now you're ready to show off your skills. You have your interview scheduled. But remember, just having these skills isn't enough. You really need to be able to put them to action. So let's talk about some do's and don'ts and get into the good stuff. So Obviously, a do. Prepare for the interview. You should spend a good amount of time preparing for every interview. And what do I mean by that? First and foremost, take time to research the company. Learn about the company's mission, core values, product. My big thing is, and I learned this a long time ago, but our CEO is very big on it, is if he's interviewing a candidate and they haven't signed up for a product and know what it looks like, if they're able to, um, he's not interested. So take that time and take that additional step. The more you know about the company and the product, the more you're able to integrate this content into your interview with the candidate, with the recruiter and the interviewers. And in my opinion, this shows me, the recruiter, that you're not just looking for a job, you're looking for this job and you're very interested in it. Number two, research your interviewer. There are so many tools. LinkedIn company profiles often have things on recruiters, interviewers. How long has this person been with the company? What is their background? Do you have any connections in common that you can rely upon? This will help you connect with your interviewer on a personal level, kind of going to what I mentioned in the beginning. Last but not least, I highly, highly recommend reviewing the job description. In fact, whenever I have done an interview, I always have the job description up on a screen so I can reference it at any point I need. This job description is your answer key. It has everything you need. It lists everything the recruiter and the company is looking for in their ideal candidate. So really think of it that way. Take time to prepare notes on how your experience meets the requirements listed in the job description. Then prepare examples using the STAR method. So if you haven't heard of the STAR method, you're probably not alone. So let's talk about it a little bit. Um, so obviously, I highly recommend the STAR method. It will help you structure your stories better. It ensures that you answer in a structured, focused, and backed by measurable evidence way. You really are proving to the recruiter that you have the initiative, collaboration, and communication skills they're looking for. So when a recruiter asks you a question, tell me about a time when you'll want to use this. So what is the STAR method? It starts out with a situation where you really set your scene. Then it goes into a task. What was the challenge that you were faced with? Then we're going to take action. What did you do? Please, please, please. Always make sure in interviews you're using I over we. The focus of the interview is on you and your contributions. And while you had work in a team setting, remember, this interview is on you. Last but not least, the result. Make sure you're quantifying the outcome with numbers, percentages, or dollars. Businesses are always looking for candidates that tie to results and are results oriented. So let's do a quick example. I know this can be vague just on the first glance. So the STAR method, using the STAR method. So the question from the recruiter is, how have you dealt with a communication breakdown on a remote team? So a possible answer that might be given might be, my remote team was having a lot of problems communicating. People weren't responding to messages quickly and projects kept getting delayed. I just started using a calendar to make sure everyone was on the same page about deadlines and things got better. So while this reply is fine, it could be much more impactful. And hopefully you guys at face value see that. But let's apply the STAR method to this example and just give you an idea of the difference and how we can make this a bit more robust. So what I've done is I've color coded the different method pieces of the method so that you can see where they fit. So again, the question, how have you dealt with a communication breakdown on a remote team? So with the STAR method, let's take the situation. Our engineering team was experiencing project delays because key information was getting lost across 3 different communication channels. What's the task? My manager needed a solution to unify our communication flow. Brief, clear, understandable. What was the action? I remember always using I took the initiative to research and implement a single source of truth protocol. And I'd recommend adding more to this action if you can. I just was trying to keep this example a bit brief for sake of time and not to bore you guys. And then the result. Within 1 month, our team's project delivery accuracy increased by 25%. We saw a 50% reduction in redundant clarification meetings, which freed up 2 hours per week for senior developers. So, this is awesome. I think if this is challenging, please feel free to use AI to help you formulate examples. I think you could easily put in an example that you have about your experience and say, you know, use the STAR method to make this better. But please, and we'll talk more about AI in a few more slides, but please remember whenever using AI, adjust things into your own words prior to presenting. You don't want to sound scripted or like you're reading things off or like you're not able to answer things on your own. So AI is great for help, but just make sure to make it your own. All right, moving on from the STAR method. I've been doing a lot of talking. So I want to make sure you're all still with me. So take a look at these two photos. Imagine that you have a virtual is the key, virtual interview scheduled. And think about which space looks like a better location for your interview. Is it A or B? In your mind, just pick one. I'll give you 2 more seconds. Um, If you selected B, you're on your way to a great interview. And let's talk about why. And this might seem obvious to all of you, but I cannot tell you how many times I've gotten on an interview with a candidate and they've taken an interview from a coffee shop and they don't mute their background or blur their background, or they're in their kitchen and I hear their children or their spouse. It may seem obvious, but this is something that I see on the regular. So I thought it was important to talk about. So let's talk about how we should always pick our perfect space. So when you choose a professional, distraction-free setting, you as a candidate are demonstrating your initiative to prepare and your communication skills by ensuring nothing interferes with the recruiter's ability to focus on you, the candidate. Many recruiters, including myself, will form key opinions about a candidate within the first few minutes of the interview. And here is a critical insight that I want to talk to you about. The location a candidate chooses for their interview is more than likely where they're going to be doing their work from if hired. So that space, that background, that connection, internet connection, it's not just a setting for an interview. To me, as a recruiter and someone that has hiring say, it is a preview of this person's professionalism and their work environment for the next few years. So think about that when you choose your next interview spot. You're really demonstrating your respect for the interviewer's time, your ability to establish a reliable, professional, remote workspace. So really prepare for the interview and pick the perfect space. So at this point, you're ready. Let's move on to the do's of the interview. So I always like to tell people, like, you're going to nail this, right? Like, you're going to do great. You're going to do wonderful. So do nail the interview, do great, do wonderful, succeed in this interview. And let's talk about 4 ways that I think you can definitely do that. First and foremost, listen to the interviewer. Please, please, please. Interviewers often provide many clues about company culture, project challenges. They'll do this about when they're talking about why the position is opened or why the person previously left. And just as a note, if they don't mention why the position is open, it's a great question to ask. Um, if you listen effectively, you can also avoid asking questions that have already been answered. This is a hugely common mistake and it's super frustrating for an interviewer. So, active listening is critical. Next up, summarize your experience. Recruiters usually allocate about 30 minutes for initial candidate calls. Now, if the call is going well, they absolutely are happy to go over, but it's usually a 30-minute allocation. So use no more than 10 minutes to summarize your experience. So you need to be succinct, brief, and make sure that you're spending time on the most relevant roles, responsibilities, or experience in the same space for this position. So if you've had five roles and you're interviewing for, say, a crypto company, um, and one of those roles has been for a competitor in the crypto space, spend more time there. Really focus on areas that will help you stand out. Connect yourself with the company, job, and interviewer. Um, we talked about doing research, and this definitely goes back to that. Throughout the interviews, finding ways to connect your experience to the job description using the STAR method. Connect who you are to the culture of the company and the team, and find ways throughout the interview to build rapport and connection. Demonstrate your genuine interest in the company's mission and goals. Another word of advice, only apply to companies that you truly are excited and passionate about the product. When you do this, genuine interest will come through naturally because you'll be naturally curious. You'll want to use the product. You'll want to know about it. Um, I know that sometimes when you need a job, you apply to all companies, and I also understand that as well. But um, if you can, connecting to companies that you're passionate about is much easier to do. Last and not least, inquire proactively. So bring prepared questions from your research to the interview. Ask the interviewer why they're choosing to work for this company. Ask the interviewer, why they're filling this position. Why is this position open? And then at the end, ask for feedback. How did I do on the interview? Where can I improve? How do I meet the expectations of the job description? Asking for feedback live is so much more impactful than asking via email. Via email, it's much easier for a recruiter to just say, we don't provide feedback after interviews. But when you catch them on the spot, they got to give you something. All right, so let's talk about a couple don'ts. There definitely are a few. So some common pitfalls that I've seen. Number one, reciting the resume. Oh Lord, this is a tough one for me. Um, it- I I I completely disconnect. I'm not engaged. It's boring. You'll lose your interviewer and you lose the chance for the role. Don't do this, please. It really demonstrates a lack of communication skills and respect for the interviewer. Um, Truly, it looks like the candidate is unable to prioritize the most relevant information. So, if you need to do this beforehand for the position, do that. Create notes for yourself. It's okay. From my own experience, also, it often makes me question if the candidate um, truly has the ability to communicate effectively in English, which is usually a huge requirement for a US position or working for a US company. Number two, I promised that we would get back to AI, and here we are. Using AI interviewing tools. So there is a time and a place for AI. Live interviews are definitely not the place. Good communication is dynamic. It involves reacting to nonverbal cues, adjusting your tone, demonstrating natural pauses. AI tools make candidates sound like they're reading scripts. And again, recruiters are looking for that genuine connection. I would much prefer someone tell me that, they're still learning English and they're still improving and struggle a little bit than use AI and look like a robot. So if the reliance on a tool is discovered, or even if I suspect it, I instantly lose trust. And, I wonder myself, if they need help answering basic questions, how will they be successful day to day at Higlobe? So AI is a great tool to prepare, but do not use it during live interviews. Not good. I will tell you, in my experience, I have seen many AI interviewers, and they're just not engaged. They're reading from a script, and it's just not a good interview. So. Last but not least, time zone troubles. Oh man. At Higlobe, we have people in 15 countries and we have people in so many different time zones, obviously. So, um, this seemingly small mistake has massive repercussions, in my opinion, because it, to me, immediately signals a lack of attention to detail and initiative, which are two essential traits that I'm always looking for and essential for remote work. So, in a global remote company, working across time zones is going to be a daily requirement. Missing meetings due to scheduling errors is not acceptable. So find ways to be successful with this. There are so many tools out there. I use like a meeting scheduler online, and it allows me to put in several different countries along with my own, and it's super helpful. So don't let time zones mix you up. It's also a bad first impression to be late or have to reschedule or miss the interview. So yeah, don't let that happen to you. All right. One last don't for you. Some cultural missteps that I have noticed. First and foremost, avoiding eye contact. I know that interviewing remotely and even honestly doing a webinar remotely is a little uncomfortable. So practice. You have family, you have friends, you have probably trusted mentors. Um, Practice and just get comfortable with it. It is important to build that connection. False modesty. I definitely see this in many different cultures. Um, and this goes back to talking about your contributions using I versus we. Don't downplay your achievements. This interview is showcasing you and your skills. So do that and do it great. Really talk proudly about those contributions. And then the last thing, asking pay first. Oh man, this is a tough one. I know that pay is important, but this is a total turnoff. And in the US, people are very flexible with pay. They are more, well, I shouldn't be generalizing so much. It really depends on the economy and what the job market looks like. But usually highly qualified people aren't as worried about pay. They're more worried about the job, their contributions, the product, the business, how they can learn and grow. And I highly recommend putting those things at the forefront and talking about pay at the end. I absolutely don't think you should ever end a recruiter call and not cover compensation. I think that's a critical piece to talk about, and it is important to support you and your family and your life. But if pay is your first concern, this may not be the right job for you. So definitely push that towards the end of the conversation. So those are the do's and don'ts I have. I did one bonus slide because I feel like we're talking about interviewing, but even before you get the interview, there's this huge piece of US recruiting and it's the resume, right? And so I did a bonus slide just with a couple bullet points about do's that you should do when you're building your resume. So first and foremost, I cannot tell you how many times I have seen this. Always submit your resume in English. Um, I see this especially in Brazil, to be honest. I get so many resumes in Portuguese, and I don't speak Portuguese yet. But either way, if you're applying for a US position and the job description is in English, you should be submitting your resume in English. No questions about it. I automatically push resumes that are not in English out as not qualified. It's honestly just like an obvious point that I think if a candidate isn't submitting their resume in English, they're not paying attention. So, second thing, include only personal information. I know in other countries it might be normal to include a photo or information about your personal status. If you're married, your age, please don't include any of that on your resume for US companies. In the US, we have very strict discrimination practices for hiring. And, I bring that to my international recruiting as well. So please do yourself a favor and just remove anything personal from your resume. Um, Select a common resume format for the US. These are easy to find, but I think recruiters are more apt to reading them and feel more comfortable looking at them, and it just gives you a step up. So it's simple. You can just take the content you already have and put it into a US formatted resume. Limit your resume to 2 pages always, and if possible, one. Um, recruiters can always go look at your LinkedIn profile, so they can look at more. And if you have experience that's significantly older, it may not even be relevant. So just 2 pages max, 1 page where possible. Include previous company locations. So how you can show that you've worked internationally and that you've worked remotely if you have the experience. Make sure you're listing that on your resume. This company was located in Spain and I was remote or comma remote position. You can easily add that to show that experience that you have. And then last but not least, always submit your resume in a PDF. Why? When you submit it in a different format, things tend to move, especially if you have objects in it, and it just doesn't look as professional. It doesn't look the same way it did for you. So always recommend submitting in a PDF. So I've been talking for 28 minutes. I hope that you enjoyed all of the content. I think we'll be sharing this content with you or have it available in a recording, but I'm happy to take any questions to help out clarifying anything or covering anything I maybe didn't cover. Thank you guys.
Yeah. First of all, thank you so much, Ashley. This was wonderful. I think I was taking notes here, and I hope everyone else was too. But just remember, guys, we received some questions here. The recording and the presentation will be available. We'll send to you guys after the presentation is done here. One other thing, if you are listening up until now, we have a gift for you. So we'll raffle one consultation call. Can I call it that way, Ashley? With
Yeah.
actually a 30-minute consultation call. So for everyone that's still participating, we have your email, we'll have your contact information. We're going to raffle that after this ends, and we will get in touch with you. So fingers crossed. And before we jump into the questions, let me just say one thing. Ashley, you said that that was your very first webinar. It doesn't look like it. You look like a natural. So congrats and thank you so much for participating.
Thank you. Thank you guys. It was fun. I hope I really tried to put in some great content and some examples, so I hope that there was some valuable information there for people.
Yeah, so in terms of questions, we have a few here in the chat. We have a few questions that people have sent beforehand, and I also have questions from myself that I always like to ask recruiters. So let me start. I'm gonna leverage that I'm the one asking the questions here, and I'm gonna start with one from myself. So one question that recruiters ask, not always recruiters, maybe sometimes are on it's on the on the application form, is why do you want to work at this company? And a lot of people might think that that's the time when you have to like to not put in a word in a bad way, like flat at the company say, "Oh, I want to work for that company because that company is amazing. I love what you guys do." But I'm not sure if that's how this question should be answered. So, how do you expect candidates to answer to this question? Like, why would they want to work with you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's funny because after I learn more about the candidate, one question I always ask is, what are you looking for in a company, in a team, in a position? And I think that that's very similar. And what I like to hear is like, do they have a connection to the company? Like, are they interested in what we're doing and the impact we're having? But then I also hear all the time, I really want to work for a US company so I can expand my professional skills, improve my English. And I love that answer. I think it's honest. I think it definitely builds rapport with me. Um, but again, I would always say, like, I always want candidates to hold their truth, right? Like, answer things truthfully because that's how you're going to figure out if you're the right fit for the company. That's also important. It's not just about me interviewing candidates and saying, are you a good fit for Higlobe? You have to decide if you think you're a good fit for the company as well. So,
Okay, thank you. We have a few questions here at the chat. We have like up until the top of the hour. So we'll try to go over everything. If by any means we don't go over your question, don't feel bad. You can always reach out to us on LinkedIn. So let's get started. We have one here from Andre. He asked, like, why do some remote job posts explicitly require a US work authorization or a visa, while others don't? And if a specific role requires an authorization or a visa, is that something that's non-negotiable?
That's a good question. Personally for Higlobe, we don't, if we're hiring internationally, we are, we're not bringing them to the US. They're not working in the US company. They would be in kind of, their own country. So it's an odd reason. Most likely, if they're asking for a work authorization, you might want to make sure that the position isn't located in the US, because I could see it being a remote role that is located in the US. If it's posted internationally, it would be weird that they would need a US authorization because really that's the only reason. Um, Otherwise, I think, most companies they have offices set up in different countries. They'll have like entities set up. So they wouldn't even need that because you would be legally able to work for that entity in that country. So it's a good question. The only thing I can think of is that maybe that position is actually like for the US company and you would need to be in the US for it. So, um, to hit the second point about like, I think this is something that I don't know, as a recruiter, I want people to follow directions. And if I say um, like this experience is a requirement and they apply and don't have it, I'm a little frustrated. But then I can't tell you how many times a candidate has applied and didn't meet all the requirements, but was the right candidate for the position. So like I would always say, and we actually have it on all of our job descriptions, it always says, if you don't meet all of the requirements, please still apply because there might be another time that we want to assess your experience or you might end up being the right person. So I would say that the one exception I would give is the visa. If they are specifically requiring it, there's a reason, and maybe it's a compliance reason. It could be many things, but that would be the one thing that if they're requiring it, I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't apply if you didn't have it.
Yeah, and one thing to add to that, seen from a Latam perspective, because we see this a lot of here with candidates from Australia as well. If you guys need to learn how to differentiate what is remote work and remote culture, like work remotely from work from anywhere. Some companies work remotely, but they have set up offices in determined countries. So, for example, Strider, we do hire remotely, but we only hire from Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Paraguay, and Colombia due to legal reasons. So, whenever you guys are applying to something, make sure that it's remote. Like if you wanna like be a digital nomad and work from anywhere, be sure to understand if that's the case because sometimes it's just not. Let's go to another question here from Gabriel. You already told like what are some good questions to be asked during the presentation, but like he's saying that one question that he likes to do is ask the recruiter, how does the company sees itself in 5 years from now? I guess like he's looking for feedback here. Is that a good question? And are there any other questions that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a great question. I will say that if you're applying to startups, it might be a hard question for the recruiter to answer. Like Higlobe is an early stage startup, and like we are not thinking about 5 years. We're like thinking about the next 1 year. So hopefully the recruiter will be honest with you about that. But I think it's a great question. I would say there are probably better questions you can ask, and it would be things like that connect your experience a bit more. So like I would ask questions like, how can I be successful in this position? Like, how can I show that I'm the right fit for this role? What are some of the challenges that the team I'm joining is facing? And those would be better questions, I think. I also think, what are you guys looking for in the best candidate? What are some qualities, features, characteristics, traits that you're looking for? And this will help you also narrow down if you are the right culture fit for the team. Because companies have a culture, but then teams have cultures of their own. So making sure you're the right fit for both is important.
Thank you. Another question here. So we know that a lot of startups, they value growth mindset, like ability to take full ownership. So someone here, it's anonymous, it's asking how a candidate can demonstrate those abilities during an interview process.
Yeah, yeah. I think you can demonstrate these abilities in a couple of ways. First and foremost, you can show your impact to the company through what we talked about earlier, metrics, right? So you can show how you contributed to growth in the company, especially from like a monetary perspective. Like how did you contribute? Like if you're a product manager and you can talk about a time when you were given a product to launch, but looked forward, saw forward, and thought, how can I make this a better product or how can I build on this before we even launch it? And then tie metrics to that success. I think showing overall metrics, especially in certain roles, like sales positions, product roles, even engineering roles, I would say, because you can tie like code that you've written for products to growth in companies, absolutely, and even investment in resources to streamline things to take less hours of engineering time. So I think growth mindsets can be shown from how you proactively take on projects, how you go above and beyond with a project, how you are constantly thinking of the next iteration of what that project looks like.
Good. So another one here. Someone is asking, like, sorry, Guido is asking how to balance between looking at the screen, looking at the camera, looking at your own notes. Like, we know that recruiters notice that, like, if you have notes or if you're reading the question, like, how to balance that.
Listen, I had that same struggle today. I had notes. I wanted to look at this at the camera. Like I get it. I think being honest. Like I really value candidate honesty, and when a candidate is open and honest with me up front, like if they immediately join the interview and they say I'm nervous, like this is only my second interview in English, like I value that. It also makes me a little bit more sensitive to them and more helpful and understanding. I think it's okay to come on and say, just so you know, like I have the job description and I have some notes. So if you see me looking around, I think that's totally fine. I don't think anybody is expecting perfection. Like I think if you have notes, you've shown preparation, and I think that's great. So I would just be open and honest and share that information.
Cool. This one is a good one. What's the best way to answer to the salary expectation question?
Oh, this question. Um, I will first answer it from a recruiter perspective, and then I will answer it from a candidate perspective. So first and foremost, for a recruiter, I would always say be honest. I think when candidates play this game of like, well, I'm flexible. What are you looking for? It's kind of frustrating. It seems like you don't know your value and you're not being honest. I value from a recruiter perspective the honesty and just saying this is my range. And it's fine if it's a bigger range and give the recruiter the opportunity to dig into that or to share their range with you. As a recruiter, I am always 100% honest with candidates about what our range is. I have nothing to hide, and I'll be honest, like from my interview with you, I would see you on, the 50th percentile of that range, halfway through. So, um, not all recruiters will do that, but I think most recruiters don't want to play this back and forth game of like, oh, I'm flexible and open, and then you're not providing anything. I think it's frustrating on both parts. I think also be prepared to talk about dollars, right? Like be prepared to talk about your pay in dollars, not in reais or whatever it might be. And I know I did not say that right, but um, but but yeah, be
You did a good
prepared.
job.
Be prepared to at least talk about dollars. And then from a candidate perspective, I think it's okay to inflate your ask. Like, I mean, I know the stigma is like, oh, everybody in the US gets paid more. Like, right now that's not actually true. And you have to remember that part of the reason the US is interested in international talent is not just a new opening, a new bucket of talent. But it's also the fact that they can, save some dollars. So they still have a great budget that is going to be aggressive, but I think it's okay to inflate your salary a little bit. But if it's a job you really want, I would always recommend saying something like, this is my range. This is what I was previously making and what I'm looking for. And it's okay if there's a little buffer. Um, but I would say, but for the right position, I'm flexible. It's more important to me the job I'm doing, the company I'm working for, the team I'm on. I think that's a better answer.
Yeah, and actually, there's a little bit of a cultural difference from the US and most countries in Latin America. When a job position is shared in Brazil, or in Argentina and Colombia, usually there's not a range, and it's very common for the US to offer a range. So one thing that we try to educate candidates here at Stride is how to navigate a range. So if you say that, let's say you have a position open and the range goes from $2,000 per month to $4,000 per month. You know that that's a big range because it's almost like the end of the range. The range is almost, it's 100% more than the
Right.
start of the range. So how can candidates navigate that range?
Yeah, definitely don't go in thinking that you're always at the top of the range. I mean, like that is for the candidate and the team to assess. And like I think it's great to have confidence in yourself, but I think you also need to be honest with yourself about how much you meet the requirements of the job. Like I get it. If you're applying for a job that is requiring 2 years of experience and you've got 10, that's great. That doesn't necessarily mean that you meet all of the requirements in that job description. So I would really be honest with yourself and think about like when you're navigating the range, out of the 10 bullets and the requirements, how many do I meet fully, right? And then do the math. Like, what percentage is that? And then multiply that by the range and gives you an idea of where you're at. Um, I think, in the US, um, pay transparency is a huge topic. There are whole classes and courses about it. There are legal regulations that we have to, in certain states, share what our pay ranges are. A lot of it also depends on location. So, like if you live in California, where I'm at, versus you live in Michigan, the pay range is going to be very different because the cost of living is different. And that's no different in Brazil or the Philippines, right? If you're in the center of the city or you're in the mountains, the pay range is very different. So also take that into account. So those are kind of the things I would think about. And I think I've given you a bit of an equation, like go through the job description, mark off the ones you're 100%, divide it, and by the all of the open requirements, and then see what that percentage is. I think that's great, but also factor location in. Um, and I would say factor in communication. US companies want people that speak English well. This is not something to pass over. It's very important. So practice, practice, practice. If that's your goal, if you have friends that are English speaking, use them as your buffers and have them help you improve. So,
Uh, just heads up, still have quite a few questions here, and we are almost at time. We'll try to go through all of them, but starting now, I'll start to select and kind of like merge questions that are similar. So
and
yes,
Luis,
guys,
if you want to send
yeah,
me them, I'm happy to answer them, and then send them to you, and maybe you can post them on LinkedIn for people.
yes, for sure. So we'll do a recap of this that we will post on our socials. You
Okay,
guys will receive the recording, and also we'll do the raffle for the consultation with Ashley.
perfect.
That's a good question here. Someone is asking, saying that they have gaps on their resumes because
Yep.
they did take some personal time. In this particular case, this candidate here says that he went backpacking or hitchhiking around the world, and then like he just took like a leap year or a personal time. how is the best way to add or to explain those gaps in the resume?
Yeah. Um, so this is going to sound weird, but I think you can add it to your resume. Like, I think if you give a recruiter an answer before they can make assumptions, like a lot of recruiters will assume like, oh, they couldn't find a job or they're job hopping or this and that. Like, I think if you add it to your resume as like a, personal year off of growth and add in that you did some, continued learning, even like reading, knowledge sharing, whatever it might be, I think you're giving them an answer versus letting them create their own message. Um, I think you can also put it in your cover letter. I think putting it on your LinkedIn is great. But I think also you could address it with the recruiter and they may ask you, you know, what were you doing during this time? And I think it's important to be honest. I get a lot of interviews with moms that have taken time off to raise their families, and they're honest about that. I stayed home for 4 years to raise my family, and that's great. I think just being honest and open so that the recruiter can't create their own narrative. And along that same line, I would say every recruiter's question is, why are you looking for a new position? um, and
Uh,
I think there's a lot to unpack with this question, but like my recommendation to all of you would be honest. Um, is there something in the company that's not a fit? Make sure that when you phrase it though, you're not making it a problem. You're just saying, hey, it's not the right fit for me. Like, hey, the company doesn't move at a fast enough pace for me, right? That's great. It shows that you want to go faster and that you're high impact, moving quickly, agile. But find a way to turn why you're looking into a positive. I've seen a lot of international candidates that will say they don't like their manager, or there's like total transparency and honesty, and nobody's going to hire somebody if they say they can't get along with their manager. Like, it's just not a good answer. It's not a good look. Find a way to make it a more positive reason. So,
yeah. I'm gonna answer one question here. Mateus asked if we can share a common resume format. We actually do have a few assets that in the resume format guide to improve your LinkedIn profile and get noticed by recruiters. We'll send you guys all of that together alongside with the recording of this call, so that will be sent afterwards. Also, for Mateus, how relevant are academic experiences in the resumes? For example, university degrees. And also, I'm going to just add something here. There are differences between college and formal academic education between Brazil or other countries in Latin and the US. So, how people should put that on the resume. For example, we have something here in Brazil that translates like the literal translation will be postgraduate,
mhm.
but it's not what you guys understand as postgraduate. I don't know if you have ever had that on the resumes that you receive. So how can people, is that important and how can people show those differences on their resumes?
I think any education that you're doing is relevant. um, but I think you need to put experience on there that's relevant to the job. Like, don't put like I don't know, some like class that is like personal development, right? Like, relevant to the job that you're applying to is important. Um, if you've done like a certification program or a program that doesn't include a degree, I would say that in like parentheses, like not a degree program or something like that. Um, I think it's always important that if you started college but you didn't graduate, that you put that on your resume. Not completed is fine, or did 3 years, or just be honest about that. Because when it comes to a background check, it's going to come out. So being honest again. But I think that all education is important, and I would find a way to put it on there. What I would say is, I think that some people with less experience that are just getting into the market, they will make a whole resume about projects they worked on. Um, yeah, I think you got to limit those. Like, you got to have some more relevant experience. So once you start building your resume and you do have that like legitimate relevant experience, start to make those projects less and less. Um, if I'm interviewing for an engineer, they'll share their GitHub link with me or they'll share, whatever else links they have, and then I can pass those on to the team. But like, I don't need a whole page on your resume about projects that you did. It's not relevant.
Got it. And we have a couple of questions here about how to ask for feedback because someone is saying that they've heard somewhere else that asking for feedback after the interview or right after the interview is not good practice. Someone else is asking, like, saying that they sent emails asking for feedback after the interview is completed and they usually don't get an answer.
Yep.
And we know that recruiters are interviewing lots and lots of people, and it's very hard to get personalized feedback for everybody that we interview. So, how do you think it's the best way for candidates to try to get that feedback?
Yeah. First and foremost, in the US, it is strictly frowned upon to provide personalized feedback to candidates. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen. So we do not do it. We'll do something generic like we found other candidates that were a better fit, or, there really wasn't one thing that stood out that you could do differently, but you're not going to get direct feedback from a US recruiter. And if you do, I mean, appreciate it because that's wild. It terrifies us. We would love to do that, but there's just too many problems and too many lawsuits. Um, so back to the initial part of the question, I don't know why you got feedback that it's frowned upon to ask. I take that as this person's taking initiative to learn and to grow themselves and to better themselves. I wouldn't take up 10 minutes of the interview for this. At the end, I would just say, do you have any quick feedback for me on the interview or how I can improve? That's all I would say. I wouldn't make it a huge review session. I wouldn't look to get in the weeds about it. But or you could even ask like, I'd love some feedback on how you think I'm a fit for the position. So
So we have one last here, and I think that's a good one to wrap it up. What's the best response for the question, why should we hire you?
why should we hire you? I think that if you have done your research on the company and the team and you've now talked to the recruiter, I think that you should find a way to tie your experience to how you can impact the company. I'll give you an example. Oftentimes on HR teams, you have people with a lot of different experience and you have like different specialties. So what I could do is I could say, well, I offer international experience that you don't currently have on your team. Find a way to showcase your experience and how you're different and how you can provide an impact to that business. I think also tying it back to the passion that you have for the product. Um, you know, I've worked 5 years in fintech companies and I have a passion and a drive for it. And I learn about it on the side and I'm motivated and excited to help your company go to the next step and contribute in other ways. Like finding ways to set yourself apart and show you did the research, you know the company, you're passionate, and you can contribute to the growth of it.
Cool. And that was all the questions. Before we wrap it up here, Ashley, is there anything more you want to add? I just want to do a quick reminder. Everyone that's here, we have lots of open jobs at Strider right now. Actually, if you guys have any open positions at Higlobe, feel free to share. But I just want to leave here with the note, go on Strider, complete your profile, even if there's not a position there that might fit your profile right now. We will reach out in the future if something that fits your like future profile shows up. If you sign up to Strider and complete your profile, you will have access to the benefits tab. And if you go on the benefits tab, one of the things that you can do there is open up a Higlobe account. If you open up a Higlobe account through Strider, you get 3 months with no taxes plus 0.3% taxes after that. And I can say that because I use Higlobe on a personal level, and it's a very good services. So I'm pretty sure that if you guys need to like receive money from overseas, Higlobe is definitely a very good solution. We'll leave this space for you now, Ashley, if you have any final notes. But again, thank you so much for joining. This was wonderful. I learned a lot, and I hope everyone that's participating have one too.
Yeah, I think that I would just wrap up and say, please remember, like I am one recruiter, and while I do have a lot of experience in recruiting, these are just my experiences and feedback. I do have a lot of friends in the recruiting space, and I think we work a lot the same, but everybody always has different ways of doing things. So like my way is not the hard and fast rule, and you're always going to run into recruiters that have different preferences. So, I think do your best. And if I could leave you with one piece, and I've said it a couple times, is be yourself and be honest. Like I think that will help you build rapport. It helps you gain trust with your interviewer, and it shows who you really are. Like in an interview, don't be someone else. Like you're not going to be the person that they need to hire if you're not yourself. So really show up as yourself.
Okay, that's it. Thank you again so much, Ashley. It was a pleasure hosting for you here. Everyone, please be on the lookout for other webinars, both on High Globe socials and also on Strider socials. I hope you guys had a good time. Thank you so much for attending, and I'll see you next time.